To Hannity, and we are following two major breaking news stories. Tonight begins a new chapter in the cable news wars. Yes, we're now back live at 9 p.m. We'll have more on that in just a minute. Also tonight, the president takes on the NFL and players who refuse to stand for the national anthem and our flag. Now, Vice President Mike Pence is at a political rally tonight, and he's standing with President Trump in that race down there for the Senate. We're going to have his comments in the course of the program this hour. Steve Bannon will join us in his first cable interview since leaving the White House. Also tonight, Newt Gingrich, Laura Ingraham, and these announcements, they're massive. You don't want to miss it. But first, tonight's all-important opening monologue. All right, so we're now back at our old time slot, 9 p.m. Eastern. We're glad you're with us. We're living in very interesting times in America. Now, sadly, many big institutions, they are failing you, the American people. We're now living in a time you have powerful groups within the government. They've decided they want to undermine a sitting president that you elected. The deep state bureaucrats, they're selectively leaking at a rate of almost a leak a day. It's all unprecedented, and it's all in an attempt to damage and destroy the administration. Now, the Democratic Party, for their part, they're void of any and all ideas. They just want to attack the president 24/7, 365. They're not offering any solutions to you, the American people. You've got Republicans, you got Trumpers. They're too timid, they're too weak to take the necessary bold actions we need to get the economy and health care and our nation's security back on track. And as it relates to the cable wars, well, the media is more corrupt than ever. Almost all of the mainstream media is now abusively biased and ideologically driven. They're advancing on like a minute-by-minute basis their radical left-wing agenda. You got websites, magazines, newspapers. You got the New York Times, the Washington Post, and especially cable TV, fake news CNN, MSNBC conspiracy TV. They are purposely propagandizing the country 24/7. So tonight, as we begin this new journey together in this new time slot, I'm promising you this. I'll be working diligently every single night to take on those groups together because there's so much at stake for this country, and we do hope you will join us every night. We hope you'll tell your friends. Now, unlike the rest of the media, this show, we're going to present news and information that the left-wing media will never tell you about. This show, we're going to be setting the record straight. We're going to be presenting strong, thoughtful, powerful opinion. No conspiracy theories, unlike our so-called competitors. And here's my promise to you. We'll also do something the mainstream media never does. We'll be offering solutions on a regular basis and ideas to the country's many challenges. So, moving forward tonight, this show is going to be about looking out for the forgotten men and women in this country, what this election was about. We have nearly 50 million Americans on food stamps, nearly 50 million Americans in poverty, 90+ million Americans out of the labor force, a 51-year low home ownership rate. We've doubled the national debt. My promise to you is this. We will hold Washington accountable together. That includes all the politicians, both parties, those who have failed this country and the people of this country, and those who think that they should be served instead of being public servants, which is what they were elected to do. Now, a reminder. This is a marathon. It's not a sprint. There are many, many people, I'm telling you, in the mainstream media and on the left, they want me to fail and fail miserably. They've wanted that now. I'm beginning my 23rd year here at Fox. And many, they'd even like to silence all conservative voices. I'm not doing the show for media critics. I never will. I am doing this show for all of you and the forgotten men and women in this country. So, tonight as we begin, I hope you'll join us every night, 9 Eastern. We hope you'll tell your friends. We hope you'll set your DVR. We hope you'll never miss an episode. The goal of this show is to make America the strongest it can be, the land of security, prosperity, where every single American can fulfill their dreams. And we do thank you for tuning in. All right, now tonight, our top story, President Trump taking on the NFL for players who refuse to stand for the national anthem. Here's what the president said on Friday. Take a look.
Wouldn't you love to see one of these NFL owners, when somebody disrespects our flag, to say, get that son of a bitch off the field right now, out, he's fired?
Now, after President Trump's comments on Friday and over the weekend, many NFL players, coaches, and owners responded in a massive protest. 1 in 8 NFL players did not stand for the national anthem. 3 teams, they even refused to take the field during the Star-Spangled Banner. And one Pittsburgh Steelers player, Alejandro Villanueva, a former Army Ranger, he was brave enough to defy his coach and his entire team and stand proudly for the national anthem. I'm going to have something to say about him later in the program. Now, 2 national anthem performers, even they took a knee while singing, and multiple owners issued statements condemning President Trump. Why? For daring to call players out. Let me tell you the facts here. This is beyond disrespectful to the country, to the men and women, the millions who have fought, bled, died, were injured defending and fighting under that flag. Look, NFL players, you want to protest, go knock yourselves out. But when you disrespect the flag, you're doing nothing for the people in this country to advance the ball for the forgotten men and women that are suffering. And frankly, you're spitting in the eye of every service member who did serve, fight, bleed, and die under that flag. And what's even more sad, a Pittsburgh Steelers player, the former Army Ranger, Alejandro Villanueva, he was even criticized by his own coach. After the game, his own coach, Mike Tomlin, said this. Take a look.
Many of them felt like something needed to be done. I asked those guys to discuss it, and whatever they discussed, that we have 100% participation or we do nothing. They discussed it for an appropriate length of time. They couldn't come to an understanding, so they chose to remove themselves from it. They were not going to be disrespectful in the anthem, so they chose not to participate. But at the same time, many of them were not going to accept the words of the president. So we decided to sit it out. To not take the field. I was looking for 100% participation. We're going to be respectful of our football team.
Now, as I said, we'll have more on Alejandro later in the program. Suffice to say, his jersey skyrocketed to #1 on NFL.com. That speaks volumes. Now, I'm not sure why it's so hard for so many NFL players to understand why Americans don't want to see the flag and the national anthem disrespected on Sunday, on game day. And to me, one of the best moments, you watch an NFL game, is when it's over. You have warriors, the best of the best athletes, both sides. They unite, they get in a circle, they say a prayer of thanks. That I love. If the NFL of players, you want to choose to make political statements, you have every right to do it. And I'm predicting right here and now tonight that the fans that disagree and find it offensive, they're going to flee. That's also their right. Look, I don't support boycotts. I never have. But I'm also not interested in watching this behavior and the sign of disrespect every Sunday. As of today, Saturday is now my football day, unless this changes. Not to mention, this so-called show of unity in the NFL is already showing signs of cracking and is getting a negative response. Take a look at some of these headlines. Hollywood Reporter, Ben Roethlisberger regrets Steelers boycotting the anthem. Trump supports fan boos. Deadline, Hollywood, Sunday Night Football ratings down again on day of player protests. Grabian, Roger Goodell, ignoring league's own rules and letting players protest anthem. CBS Denver, Von Miller, ads being pulled after the anthem protest. He's a star player for the Broncos. The New York Post, to my limit, stadium worker quits after the Bills protest the anthem. And just to put things in perspective tonight, for all of you out there, for all these NFL players that want to take a knee and disparage the flag and the men and women who fought and died for it. Let's do a little comparison. It costs on average $92.98 for a single ticket to an NFL game, and that's just the average. Family of 4, they're spending hundreds and hundreds of dollars just to attend. Never mind, you want to buy a beer, hot dog, a Coke? Forget it. The average NFL salary, $2.4 million. Some players making tens of millions of dollars and even hundreds of millions during the course of their careers. And by the way, they deserve it. That's fine. They're great athletes. Now, meanwhile, the average salary for a private in the military is under $41,000 a year. Now, think about this for a second. NFL players, they have an opportunity to make millions of dollars because of men and women who make a modest salary that risk everything, their lives, to give them the freedom to play this great game. And here's another dose of reality. If average men and women protested and pissed off their customers at work, they probably wouldn't have a job. We are all the customers, by the way, of the leftists in Hollywood and all these pro sports athletes. So should the same standard apply to them? And as for the president's comments, under President Obama, get this, millions and millions more Americans went on food stamps. And by the way, we didn't keep our doctors, we didn't keep our plans, million more in poverty. And by the way, he doubled the national debt for our kids and grandkids. And the president right now, he's trying to make policies that are better for the people in this country, especially those left behind. So it seems to me, you people protesting, you have no clue what the president's plans are. And as the president said, this is about respect. The one thing that should unify us, respect for the flag, respect for our anthem, respect for the servicemen and women that fought under that flag. And for those claiming this is all about freedom of speech, freedom of expression, yeah, I'm a total believer in it. I make my living doing this. But you know what? These players have every right to protest. But some of them are massive hypocrites when it comes to freedom of speech on the field. You know, there's a reason the NFL, some call it the no fun league. Take a look at these examples. Celebrations banned, including twerking and shooting a bow and arrow in the end zone. Is that a violation of free speech? They're not allowed to taunt another player or team. They're prohibited from using abusive, threatening, or even insulting language or gestures. Players are not allowed to remove their helmet in the field of play or in the end zone. And players have been fined for wearing special cleats to raise awareness for important issues like mental health and domestic violence. And the league, by the way, refused to let a player wear pink to honor his mother, who is a breast cancer survivor, after the month of October. And the NFL even turned down the Dallas Cowboys' request to wear decals to honor the 5 police officers who were killed during a shooting rampage, if you remember, back in 2016. Aren't these violations of freedom of speech? Where's the outrage over all that? Where are the protests? And by the way, where are the so-called displays of unity? Not to be cynical, the NFL threatened to fine Avery Williamson of the Tennessee Titans. He wanted to wear a 9/11/01 never forget on his cleats for the 15th anniversary of the worst terror attack in our history. I happen to be a big fan of RG3. He got in trouble for wearing a No Jesus, No Peace t-shirt. KNOW, and they made him turn it inside out. And RG3 also got fined 10 grand for wearing a Reebok t-shirt because it wasn't Nike, and Nike's sponsored by the NFL, or it sponsors the NFL. And some NFL players, they get fined for wearing Beat headphones on the field. The NFL only cares about freedom of speech because they're sponsored by Bose. So nice try, Roger Goodell. You're arbitrarily enforcing the so-called rules as it relates to free speech. And of course, the media is going insane over President Trump calling these NFL players out and trying, those in the left trying to make this about race, even though it clearly is not. Let's take a look.
Race. And you can't help but talk about race with this.
If you have any question in your mind as to whether or not he is race baiting at a certain point of time, just think of Charlottesville. It'll give you some clarity.
The president comes out and says it's not about race. That's a little bit like saying I'm not a crook. If you have to say it, you're already in trouble.
SOB, referring to NFL players who peacefully protest racial injustice, SOB, that language far stronger than what the president said about white supremacists in Charlottesville.
I don't think it's a stretch to say that is a bit of a dog whistle that is being played out there.
The protesters were almost entirely black, and the team owners whom the president was calling upon to fire or suspend those players are almost entirely white, and the president chose to launch this campaign in front of an almost all-white crowd in Alabama.
Is President Trump a racist? Is he making racist appeals to his supporters?
See, we're going to be different on this show than all of those shows. Now, the president came out and said specifically these comments he made have nothing to do with race. Watch the president.
I watched a little bit. I was not watching the games today. Believe me, I'm doing other things. But I watched a little bit, and I will say that there was tremendous solidarity for our flag and for our country. This has nothing to do with race. I've never said anything about race. This has nothing to do with race or anything else. This has to do with respect for our country and respect for our flag.
You know, the only person who's tried to make this about race is the person who started these protests. Remember Colin Kaepernick called President Trump, Hillary Clinton, both of them racist. Watch this.
You have Hillary, who's called black teens or black kids super predators. You have Donald Trump, who's openly racist. So what is this country really standing for?
Again, that's perfectly fine. Kaepernick, you want to say that, go right ahead. But when President Trump defends the military, defends the flag, defends the anthem, you know what? They all fought for this. It's a massive issue. And if the NFL wants a league full of Colin Kaepernicks, good luck with that. Because I predict, Roger Goodell, pay close attention. People will change the dial. They'll stop going to games. As a matter of fact, they already are. Saturday is going to be my football day, and Sunday you'll watch ratings and revenue decline precipitously. Joining us now with reaction, former Secret Service agent, NYPD officer Dan Bongino, and civil rights attorney Darrell Parks. Gentlemen, welcome back.
Thank you.
Darrell, let me start with you. Real simple. You respect our flag. You respect our country. You respect our anthem. I've known you for many years. We've disagreed. Tell me, and the men and women that fought, bled, and died fighting under that flag. Now, I'm all for protests. I honor your right to protest. We've disagreed on issues. Why would you choose something that specifically insults men and women in uniform?
Sean, I don't think the intent is to insult men and women who wear the uniform, nor our national anthem. I think the athletes are using their platform to bring a very important issue to the American attention: racial inequalities and injustice in America. That's the only purpose. Never intended was the insult our men and women in the military or our flag.
Really? Colin Kaepernick,
sure.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Dan Bongino, you made this point to me. You know, he had socks on. Colin Kaepernick did, that referred to cops as pigs, supports Fidel Castro. Dan?
Yeah, let's remember how this started, Sean. That is exactly correct. He walked on the field, Colin Kaepernick, with a pair of socks depicting cops as pigs. So let me get this straight, NFL. This is the hill you want to die on? You want to get on the back and ride this Colin Kaepernick wave to what? And let me get Darrell, just to be clear on this. Listen, I get it. A conversation about race is always a good one to have. But it's not the conversation Americans are concerned about. It's the format you choose to do it. Kneeling during the anthem is universally accepted as an act of disrespect. Why would you do that and insult everybody who you're trying to, quote, engage in a conversation on race? It's ridiculous.
Let me say this. There's a way and a time to have a conversation on race, right? What we expect, though, from our president is that we have a problem where many African Americans and people of color feel disrespected by some of the things that happen in our country, whether it's inequality or police injustice.
Darrell,
yes,
the Dallas Cowboys, they wanted to put a special memorial on their helmets for the cops that were killed in Dallas. You have one player wants to put "Remember 9/11" on the 15th anniversary of 9/11/2001. There's plenty of restrictions on the, quote, freedom of speech rights of players in the NFL, how they celebrate, how they talk to the refs. There's plenty. That's never come up. But the American people are viewing this differently. So tell me why this is okay and honoring dead police officers murdered in the line of duty is not.
Well, Sean, certainly I can't answer for the NFL. They have
you don't want to try and answer for the NFL because it's called. By the way, I'm going to put up the socks. Look at that. Cops as pigs. That's what Colin Kaepernick wore. Do you support that?
No, without a doubt, I don't support that. But what I do support, though, is that America needs to have a conversation about some of the inequalities that we're dealing with. That's the conversation that we need the president to lead.
Last word, Dan.
Yeah, well, all right, that's great, but you don't kneel in front of an audience, a national audience, while the national anthem is playing, slapping in the face every veteran and cop and every patriotic American who believes that those colors mean something.
Right,
that's not the way to do this. What are you missing?
That's Guys, not what this is about. Not at all.
Thanks for being with us. Steve Bannon, his first cable interview since leaving the White House. At the end of the show, we will reveal what big guests are coming up this week. The surprise is huge. Straight ahead.
I love Seahawks, but it makes me have a different view on them now.
Don't take a knee. Don't sit down. Don't do anything like that. You don't want to be here? Leave.
I don't think it's American at all. If you're going to do that, don't play in America.
For them to not come out at Soldier Field, that's dedicated to the military, and for them to be that disrespectful and not come out on Soldier Field, I'm done with it.
There's other ways that you can give a stance and give a say, and I don't think it should be through our national anthem.
I think it's shameful, and I would like to see those Colts players leave the country and leave the team.
Welcome back to Hannity, our new time live, 9 Eastern now. Those were some NFL fans who are not happy with the players who disrespected our national anthem and our flag. Earlier tonight, the Vice President, Mike Pence, he spoke out on this very issue. Let's take a look.
I stand with President Donald Trump, and I will always stand for our national anthem. We've all got a right to our opinions. But I don't think it's too much to ask the players in the National Football League to stand for our national anthem. It's about respect for the flag, respect for the country. And most importantly, it's about respect for all those who fought and died to defend it.
Here now with reaction, former Trump White House chief strategist, his first cable interview since leaving the White House, the executive chairman of Breitbart News, Steve Bannon.